Wild Talk is brought to you by Trapper Gourds, the Wild TV Canada app, and these fine sponsors.
Welcome back to Wild Talk. I'm your host, Scott Sterling, and this week we've got three amazing guests for you. We have Mike Slinkard from Hecs, we have Mitchell Payment, host of Mitchell Payment's Moment of Truth, and we have Darryl Legge, our esteemed teammate for Bowzone Live Season 3. And Ryan's going to be joining us today as well. All right, Darryl, thanks for joining us on Wild Talk. How's things going today?
Not too bad, Scott. They're staying pretty busy. The weather's starting to shift. It's getting a little bit warmer now, so from that cold spell we're not all used to because it happened so fast. Stuff's starting to move, and yeah, it should be getting interesting in the woods real quick.
Yeah, my cameras are starting to light up too here now. It's starting to see some pretty good bucks coming through. So, you know, I think I might be actually on the board at Wild Talk on Bowzone Live this year. So Darryl, you've been with us for Bowzone Live now for Season 2, which was last year, and then, of course, Season 3, which is this year. Tell us a little bit, give us a little recap about it, Season 2, last year, because you harvested an awesome deer and had a ton of encounters with some amazing animals. So let's get a recap of last year.
Yeah, no, it sounds good for sure. Yeah, I was blessed last year. I happened to shoot a pretty decent whitetail. I want to say Ryan reached out to me middle of last year and asked me if I wanted to be on the Bowzone, and I thought it'd be a neat thing to try. I've never tried it before. Filming your own hunt, it's a completely different game. It's completely different. I mean, you get a camera going, you got to keep the camera on the animal. You also got to get ready to shoot. So when you're trying to self-film yourself, never mind film a hunt, but self-film, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's challenging. I'm up for the challenge. I really enjoyed it, but yeah, it's crazy. Not overly. You don't have to overly pack. Let's say more gear, but the camera, the arm, it's not too bad. That part's okay. I can get it up there, but trying to coordinate everything as a bow hunter when you used to having a bow and release, it's a little bit tricky. Yeah, it's a little bit tricky.
So the deer you harvested last year, Darryl, tell us about it.
Yeah, I think he's got 9 points on one side, 8 on the other. He's got some unicorny thing come out the front of his head. It's a pretty unique looking deer. I first seen him, I want to say, midway through the season. I started getting pictures of him showing up. Beautiful, beautiful animal. I didn't know how young he was. He's actually a young deer. It's all good. I mean, you can't pass up certain animals. You just got to take your chances. But I think he would have blossomed into something that would just be a super, super giant in time. Things like that happen, but I had the shot. It was a clean shot. It was an ethical shot. And yeah, it's the animal I wanted to pursue. And I managed to just about get it on film. You could hear the shot. You seen the deer. Ryan kind of highlighted up at the top of the corner. You can see him walk out and turn the camera right away, and I was pretty excited. That's how excited we get by ourselves. People don't get to see that, really. I don't even notice that. I thoroughly enjoyed the sound of the shot, and I kind of thought I was a little bit too excited, kind of weird. But you don't get to see these things unless you can replay them and see them and replay them. So videoing has a lot to offer, and it's pretty neat.
No, it is. And definitely trying to self-film is something that's very, very hard to do. You know, I've been at this for a long time, and if I could give a tip or a trick for tree arm placement when you're trying to film by yourself, you know, typically when you're filming for somebody, you have the camera kind of at chest height for yourself, right? But if you've got your bow in your hand and you've got the camera up here and in the way, it does tend to...
So I personally, it was the first time filming last year, so I had to learn a couple of those things by myself, and through our group chat we used as bow hunters, which really helps. I learned a couple of things on camera placement because I didn't know, and I actually had it in the wrong spot. But just via years of bow hunting, you kind of know your draw and how you're supposed to be and where you want to be, so you can kind of tell what's going to work for you and what's not going to work for you. I tend to want to keep it out of the way, which sometimes isn't the best thing. You might want to have it, like, I don't know, what's your thoughts on that? Down lower? Higher?
Well, typically what I do when I'm in my stand, so I'm sitting in my stand, I put the tree arm kind of down right kind of by where the height of my kidney. so it comes out here, right? So it comes out, and then you've got your joint, and you can swing it either which way. But if you've got it kind of sitting here, you can very, slowly move it or turn it to wherever you need, and in turn you can turn your body to wherever your shot's going to be. So when you draw, it's down here. It's not in your way, right? So that's a little tip that maybe a lot of people who are self-filming don't know, is to make sure you've got it kind of tucked beside you. And you can, obviously it's got to be a little ways away from your body, because if you've got to come all the way around over here, well, you don't want to be hitting it. But you can always change the position of the camera arm and of the camera to kind of stay out of your way. But again, keep it close to your body so your movement doesn't get picked up by the deer, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it was 2 or 3 days before I had that deer come in underneath me. I want to say at 8 to 12 yards, and I didn't know he was going to come where he came, and I had no shooting lanes there. It was kind of a newer area, a newer stand placement for me. And all the comments were like, "Yeah, you need to clear some lanes." Yeah, I know that, but he was like right there, and I couldn't do nothing. And after he left, and I watched him left, I went in there the next day. I put up a camera, and I cleaned almost the whole bush out there. So when I was videoing, that's where the camera was pointed, because I'm figuring I seen him, and I figured that's where he's going to come again. I just set it up right there. I didn't happen to put it where he came. I thought, no way, he's going to come straight across, because that's where the sound's coming from. But no, he came straight in front of me. The sound, the grunt and the snort I was doing.
And you grunted him in, rattled, snort wheezed. What did you do to get him to come in?
I grunted. I didn't even have my horns out yet. I usually don't personally bring my horns out till later, but after this year, I'm starting to see a lot different. Like I had my call way sooner, and almost all the video that I've been sharing with everybody was me using a grunt tube. And these deer were coming to see what was going on. They don't just come hang out there. There's magic stuff on the ground. There's nothing magical about this spot. It's a spot they feel safe at, and I think they frolic in there. And I just happen to be in a nice spot. That's why I was so upset when we were having the talk, when I found a guy walking through there with his dog trespassing. I don't even walk in there. 20 years of bow hunting, and I don't even walk in this spot. But people just walk around it, so it's like the holy grail of spots you don't walk in. Now, for me this year may be a lot different, because all the fields surrounding me, I'm in a funnel. I'm basically hunting a funnel, and all the fields surrounding me are all turned over. They're all turned up. They're not just cut and plowed, they're turned. So, I mean, animals still do go there. They still do stuff, but I'm not looking too good, I'm thinking. I'm hoping that some of the bigger deer will get one of those does, because I got very few and far between now, just because of suburbia pushing stuff around. I'm hoping that he'll bring them in there and lock them in there, because that's a safe zone. So that's what I'm banking on this year, and I'm hoping it's going to work. I've had some deer that are around me, and I had a really decent 4x4 that I would have shot without a question about it. But there's a bigger one that's with him, and he's been there several times. He just won't give me the shot, or he won't come out. So I'm videoing the stuff that's right underneath me. Meanwhile, he's over there, and he won't come out. He's the reason he won't come out, and he's smart.
Well, you'll have to send him the script, Darryl. Get him to read the script so he comes out where he's supposed to.
Absolutely. I'll tell you what though, Scott. These deer know the exact sound, the exact spot that the sound is coming from. Not kind of. No, they know the tree the sound came from. They go right to the tree. It's amazing how precise they are. I'm talking within 100 yards when you're calling, where they know exactly where you are. It's almost mind-boggling. It's like, buddy, I needed you over there just a little bit. Why'd you come right here?
You'll have to practice your ventriloquist skills, so you can throw your voice by the tree where you want them to be.
Always up for learning something new. I've tried so it echoes that way. I've tried a lot of different things, and I usually have the front covered because I like to use my hand as a muffler, or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, they know where it's coming from. And when I'm watching these deer through my binos with the tube in my mouth underneath, because I want to see when they pick their head up and when they know what's going on, and they're on you right now.
Yeah, no, they can sure pinpoint that sound. And the big ones are smart. You know, they know, and a lot of times, when they're outside the rut, when you're in October-ish, they kind of tend to, they'll come in to check it out, but they'll be pretty wary. They'll be pretty careful. And then, of course, when the rut is on, they're, all bets are off at that point. If they figure that somebody else is in their territory, well, they're coming in and they're going to come see you. So tell me a little bit about what you've done to prepare for this year that was different than last year for season 2. So for season 3, what are you doing different this year?
This year, I'm, like I said, the game changes. I don't have a food plot. My food plot's not food plot, but you know what I mean? I don't have farm fields. All the farm fields are turned over. Usually, where we hunt in the Bowzone here, the crops get cut, and they got cut really early this year too. But you get some stuff growing back up, especially if you got canola around you. You got the green stouts, shrubs coming back in. So that's great. I don't have anything like that, and I knew I kind of count. I didn't think they were all going to turn at the same time, the farmers, because there are different ones around me. But I count the years and how often you got to turn stuff, how often alfalfa's got to be turned. So I knew some stuff was going to happen that way. So what I did differently this year was I had my stand placement now. I have it on different properties where there's food. I do have food around me, not where I am, but I have food, let's say, the next quarter over. There's a range road, and then there'll be lots of food there. And as you know, Scott, the later it gets into the season, the more those deer will walk 2 to 3 to 4 kilometers, 5 kilometers from bed to food. I don't understand that. I think it's a safety thing because it's such a big, heavy use trail that they're making. They just want some safety to stay away. So I'm banking on that, and I'm also banking on some of the other spots that I've set up other stands in locations where there is a little bit of food for me, hopefully to intercept something.
I had the same kind of trifecta in one of my spots here about a month ago. They had swathed it early. It was canola. The swaths were down. And in the span of 3 days, they came in and they combined. And then they came back, turned the field under. And then the next day they came back and harrowed it. So the one main alfalfa field, which is maybe a half a kilometer away, is the closest food within a mile in any direction at this point. So that field right now is just getting absolutely hammered. So that's where I'm going to be setting up. Yeah, that's where I'm going to be setting up this year, because I've got to, you got to be over the food, right? So
I don't have permission where that food is, so that's why I'm banking on a bedding area or locking one down. He's not going to lock her down in that food. He's going to tell her where he wants her to go, and I'm banking on that.
Do you like to play with the bedding area or the transition area, Darryl?
I like a transition area. I like to stay out of their bedding area because I figure that's your safe zone, right, personally. A lot of different things work for a lot of different people. What's really ironic, Scott, is all my years of bow hunting, I have never made a scrape. I've never made a scrape. I've never bought any of the liquids, the scrape. I don't do that. I know it works good. I've just never had the opportunities to try it because I've always been doing more successful or having really good success with what I do. But I think it's kind of ironic when I was telling somebody the other day, you've never made a scrape? No, I know how. I might have made one for Dan Hungel, the legendary owner of the archery shop at Spruce Grove. We were out at one of his spots one time, and I think we made some stuff, but I've never really made one where I hunt. I've never really made a mock scrape to hunt it. I've hunted scrapes, but yeah, I've never really made a scrape. I think that's kind of odd.
That is interesting, actually. All right, so we've talked about what you did last year. We talked about what you're doing to prep this year. Let's talk a little bit about the ethics. As you know, Bowzone Live, our team, I think we're 15 or 17 hunters this year. I can't even remember how many we've got going right now, but we all try and follow a code of ethics when it comes to hunting. So out of the big long list of our code of ethics, Darryl, what 2 ethics points stand out to you the most?
Number 1 for sure would be know your animal. Know what you're shooting at. It's our responsibilities as hunters to know what we're shooting at. I mean, as an example, if a person's shooting a coyote, make sure you're shooting a coyote, not the farmer's dog. So, that's a good example, but just make sure you know what you're shooting at. It's your responsibility. If it has to have a certain amount of inch of antler, you have to know what's going on, and it's your responsibility to know that. And number 2, try to make it, as bow hunters, things do happen, and I understand that, but you try to make the most lethal, humane shot as you can where the animal's broadside is straight in front of you. And we got equipment nowadays. We can shoot these animals far distances. And don't get me wrong, you can. And we try to keep ours, I think we're into like our maximum maybe is 40 yards, 20 to 30. I like to keep it 20, 30. If you're in bush, I'm under 20. I don't want to do those 30, 40, 50, 60-yard shots in bush. There's too many variables. So keeping it ethical that way is really important to me.
I was going to say it's kind of the thing where you can, but is it something you should do, right? And you're 100% right. Anything within 40 yards, I think, is, as long as it's clear, you've got your lanes or you're in a field with a whitetail, is more than far enough. Once you start to stretch out any farther than that, you're playing with a lot of different variables, like you said. There could be a branch, there could be something in the way. And also, and I think probably the biggest thing, is it gives that deer so much time from the point where that arrow leaves the bow to duck or turn or something, just get out of the position that he was in when you let that arrow fly. And it can turn a perfect shot into a bad shot, right? So, all right. Well, Darryl, thank you so much for joining us today on Wild Talk. Good luck this year, and I know you've been getting some seat time out in the bush, but it's going to start ramping up here come what? When you're going to be starting? You're going to be starting all day sits here pretty quick, I think. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, really quick.
The next 3, 4, 5 days. So yeah. So good luck. Good luck this year.
I don't think we're accustomed to it yet, to this weather. I don't think we're accustomed here. We're kind of in some shocky cold.
Yeah, we are. That's why I'm going to have my heated vest and heated gloves and heated insoles.
No, for sure. All right. Well, good luck to you too, Scott. I think you're heading out in the next couple hours here, so it's your year to shine, buddy.
I am so. All right, brother. Thank you and good luck.
You too. Take care.
Welcome back to Wild Talk. And our guest here today is not going to need any introduction. It is Mitchell Payment from Mitchell Payment's Moment of Truth. Mitchell, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
How's the hunting going this year?
Oh, it's been just a blast season. It's one of those years where prior to season in my head, I'm just thinking about all the possibilities, and literally they all came to fruition. It was just a real surreal season. I'm tagged out, and I was tagged out before November. Now I'm just running camera for my dad and Kaylin. So if that says anything, it's just been a blessed year. Harvested some beautiful whitetail bucks, giant bull elk, respectable bull moose, and a nice mule deer. So feel very fortunate right now.
Yeah, you're slaying it this year.
Jeez, I don't know. It's just, I guess hard work in the preseason really paid dividends this year.
Well, it was either that or it's that horse that you've got inserted. So does that hurt? Does that hurt?
Could be that too, but I don't want to lose it. I'll take that pain any day of the week for that.
Well, what do they say? It's better to be lucky than good, right? So let's talk about whitetails.
Yeah, you betcha.
You have tagged out on not a massive buck, but respectable. Maybe you want to lift it up and show everybody.
This guy here, Bowzone whitetail. It's my biggest to date. I've hunted the Bowzone for 11 years, encountered some really big deer, but this guy is my biggest, and he just carries his mass throughout. And what I love about this deer and specifically is how much history we have with them. We watched him grow up over the years, and from last year to this year, he just kind of blew up to carry really good mass. We figured he was a 6.5-year-old whitetail, and end of September, she all came together, and he stepped out at 13 yards. And I stroked him, and he didn't go far. So, very proud of this guy.
Oh, beautiful! Him. What do you figure he'll go? Just over 170, 180?
Yeah, we rough score him at 182.5. So he's right around that 180-inch mark. And man, oh man, I'm very happy to have him amongst the collection. It's a lot of work put into him.
Well, congratulations! That's an amazing deer,
Thanks,
and you deserve it. I know you work real hard. Early season, scouting all the time, and you put your time in and it pays off, right?
It sure does.
So I think one of the things that I wanted to talk with you about, and this is more for our viewers, is we're coming into mid-November, and what are the tips? What are the tricks? What are the things that a bow hunter, can do at this time of year in order to increase his chances to harvesting a beautiful whitetail like you did this year?
Well, this is just the magical time of year. It's really where anything is possible, and it's if you're a hunter, it's when everyone's out there. You know, first and foremost, I mean, just spending time in the field. I can't count how many bucks have been shot from that 10 to 2 period, midday, just cruising. And of course, you want to be out there in the morning and night, but midday is not a bad sit either.
When do you start your all-day sits?
I find after the first week of November, that's when things start really ramping up. November is a magical time of month. It could happen at any time. But after that first week, you hit the 7th. We've actually had some amazing encounters right around that 8th, from the November 8th right to the 12th. I find that's when the first doe might come into estrus. He breeds her, and then they just lose their mind. They have to find that next doe, and you'll just see a big buck running through a wide open field. And we've encountered this multiple years in a row with the same buck, and he was just so consistent this way. And this is where you can use other strategies too that come into play, whether it's sense, but a big one for us is calling. This deer was running 250 yards across the field, just a couple grunts, like tending grunts on a doe, and he came running right across the field, right to 80 yards. Unfortunately, we were using a muzzleloader. My dad just missed high. I'm not sure if it was the muzzleloaders are so finicky, and we've learned a lot over the years, but it just goes to show you how valuable calling can be. You know, that's it's so key, and you can use calling right into the end of the rut. So it's whether you're grunting, rattling, when their interest is peaked, they'll come look for a look.
All right, so this is probably a question that a lot of bow hunters or newer bow hunters, even bow hunters that have experience, you know, when's the right time to call? When's the right time to rattle? Do you combine the two? How long of a set, like a rattling set or a calling set, do you do? I mean, these are all questions that we've learned over the years, Mitchell, by trial and error and screwing up more hunts than you could possibly imagine. I'm sure you're in the same boat as me. What for this time of year, besides, you know, a tending grunt, how many tending grunts would you let out to try and get the attention of that buck and not make him alerted that there's something weird going on that he doesn't want to come over and check out?
Absolutely. And what I've learned over the years is you only call however much you need to. Over calling can definitely, it does exist. They can sense something's not quite right. So if the buck's already coming in my direction, I'm not going to call at all. If he's starting to work his way away, I'm going to let out a few grunts, and as soon as he notices, I might let out one more just so he can confirm it's a grunt and no more, because it's going to pique his interest. He's either probably going to come or he's going to, you know, look in your direction and think about it, and he might start working his way away again, and you can let out a few more grunts to pique his interest again and try to get him to come in. And last resort, which I think is underrated, is a snort wheeze. Last year we had a buck, we were grunting to him, he just wasn't quite interested, you know. It was a little early. It was probably November the 7th or 8th, and he just wasn't quite in the mood. I let out that snort wheeze, and it just set him off the top. He actually came running in. So there's a few different things you can use. You'll learn as you go kind of to read the body language of the deer. But as far as grunting goes, I like to only grunt when I see the deer to get him to come in, whereas rattling, I mean, I will blind rattle. And that's just a way to, if there's a deer within the surrounding area, you could draw him in. And if you're just covering an area and rattling and grunting, I think a lot of people, they'll rattle and grunt, wait 15, 20 minutes and leave. Well, sometimes those bucks are so smart, they'll come in slow, they'll really evaluate the area. I think you want to give it a solid 45 minutes. And I think that goes for a lot of animals. They're so intelligent, they can definitely surprise you.
No, they definitely can sneak in on you and come in quiet. You know, one of the things that I've learned over the years, and I'm sure you've learned it too, is that when you're rattling and you finish your rattling set, you hang those horns up as quickly as you can and you put your bow in your hand, because you could have a buck right at the base of your tree. You know, in the middle of it, but as soon as you finish up.
Yeah, that's on the other end of the spectrum. They can come racing in.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of guys where they'll sit and or they'll rattle, and they'll be sitting there with their rattling horns in their hands after they finished a set, and they look down and, well, there's their target buck, and, well, they're not going to throw the antlers at him. It's not going to work so good. So we've got a clip actually that you wanted to share with us today, and that is from what season? Tell us a little bit about that clip you're going to share, and to show the calling and how well it works.
Yeah, absolutely. That was from one of our episodes. I believe it was in season 4. We were hunting a primitive weapon season.
Mm-hmm.
This is where I was talking, where he just finally might have bred the first doe in estrus. He was one of the largest bucks in the area.
Right.
And sure enough, mid-morning. This wasn't early. This wasn't, prime time. It was probably 11:30 in the morning. Yeah. He's walking across a wide open field, and there's kind of a draw, and he is just sniffing it, looking for any sign of a doe in heat. And he was going to go wide. He was following the draw into the bush, and we let out a few grunts, and it didn't take many. It was probably, honestly, 4 or 5 just to catch his attention, no more. And sure enough,
right,
that piqued his interest. He whipped his head around and trotted and jogged across the whole field to come check it out. That's an encounter that we would have never got a shot otherwise if it wasn't for calling, and it just goes to show you how effective it can be. Right. And that's with a mature buck. A lot of the younger bucks are even way more receptive to calling. So it's definitely a tool to have in your arsenal during the rut.
Stay tuned.
Well, it's been a great morning so far. Dad and I both did our own scouting, and we managed to put some bucks to bed. The bucks we're going to be going in on right now, I spotted, and man, oh man, there's some really nice deer in this group. I'm not even sure. There was 5 to start with, and I ended up seeing 4 go to bed, but there could be some really big deer in there. There's 2 big velvet bucks, and then 2 smaller hardhorn bucks. And we spooked that typical 180 not too far from here yesterday, and he could be in there with them. I wasn't sure. He went in right at first light if it was him. And for backup, I spotted another group that went into a slough bed with some really nice bucks. So should be a great morning of hunting, but we're just gonna go down this fence line, get to this creek, go down the creek bed and get into where these bucks are at. We've got a perfect wind. You just never know. It's gonna be tough, but still, we might be able to make our way just over the hill and hopefully see him bedded and get a release and arrow. But we're gonna get after it now, and hopefully we get a...
Very cool. Let's talk about the buck. Did you name that big buck that you got this year?
Yeah, actually, funny story. Kaylin's mom actually named this deer. She named him Randy, so that kind of stuck. And ever since then, he's been Randy. And yeah, that's who he is.
I think you might have been taking a page from Bowzone Live. Because Logan, what did Logan shoot? Logan shot Ricky last year.
Yeah, that's right.
That was that big 200+ whitetail that he took for the show Bowzone Live, right? So
yeah, I think he's got about 20 inches on this one though.
Yeah, a little bit. But so, how much history do you have with this buck that you harvested this year?
You know what? It's a really funny thing. It's we've known of him for a few years, and during hunting season, he's never been in the area we hunt, and he always showed up on trail camera after hunting season. So we weren't quite sure. Like, it wasn't a deer that we really pursued. It was one of those ones that, just wishful thinking. Man, wouldn't it be nice if he showed up? And sure enough, I had my reveal cell cams out, and there was actually on a neighboring property, they were doing construction in the bush. And it wasn't a couple days later that he showed up. So I'm not sure if that's what caused them, because they don't like interruption where they live. And as soon as that happened, he showed up on trail camera, and we were down muley hunting. I'm like, we're heading home, and we zipped home and actually capitalized that night. So it really worked out in that sense. Wow. But it just, when it comes to hunting a piece of property, if you can apply the pressure, just light pressure, it makes such a difference. If the deer are comfortable and not always getting bumped, it's amazing the difference in their demeanor, how they act, how they come out. We have a couple properties where it gets hunted hard by multiple other hunters, and you just don't see the deer. They just get pushed around, and they just don't feel comfortable coming out. Right. Whereas this one, we're able to kind of leave it, hunt it to our liking, and not pressure them. We kind of just, if we're going in, it's on a perfect wind, and we kind of sit back from the bedding, and these deer, they just come out, and they just feel so comfortable. It just makes such a difference.
Where are you setting your stands? Are you setting them between bedding and the field? Are you on a field edge? Are you 40 yards in the bush? What's your strategy for tree stand placement for this time of year? Where should people be hanging their stands?
Yeah, for November, that's funny because you could literally almost sit anywhere and have a chance at a buck if he's cruising. But for us, like, we like to be in a doe-rich environment, and so where we sit is usually on the edge of a big bush. We hunt a lot of farmland and bush, not strictly just bush. So, you know, the bedding, we just leave that to them. The bush is their safe haven. That's where we don't bother them. That's where they feel comfortable, and it really keeps them in the area. And we'll just slip in onto the edge of the bush, and then we have the field in front of us. So the does typically will come out to feed, and that's kind of those are our decoys. Our bait is the does. They're out there feeding, and we never shoot any, so they just feel so comfortable. And that really, you know, that's where the bucks, that's where they find themselves this time of year, and they follow them out there, and we get them coming back. So essentially in the night we get them going out, we slip out the back. In the morning we slip in there and get them coming back to the bush to bed up for the day.
Well, it looks like those strategies have worked very, very well for you. You've had some pretty bang-up years over the last, well, shoot, probably, what, 9, 10 years?
Yeah, it's definitely been fortunate. The last two and specifically have just been unbelievable. It's almost, I've never been able to fill all my tags in the last 2 years. I was able to do so. So, yeah, it's been a blast for sure. But over the last 11 years, there's a lot of trial and error, a lot of learning, and you know, I wouldn't have it any other way.
Perfect. So, if you could leave our viewers with one surefire tip that's going to get them closer to harvesting a buck like you shot this year, just over 180 inches, what would that one thing be that they should be paying attention to and making sure that they do to increase their chances of harvesting a big mature whitetail like you did?
So two things that come to mind right away for me is patience and persistence. There's been so many times where I'm starting to get a little down on my luck. I'm not seeing the action that I'd like, but I stay persistent, and I like to always stay optimistic. There's so many times you can be on your phone just, you know, thinking that it might not happen, but you got to stay focused and be ready at all times, especially during the rut, because it could truly happen at any time. So, you know, big tip is just being out in the field, spending time out there. Don't get too caught up in the hunt, enjoy yourself, and usually that's when it all comes together. And I hope everyone watching this has the best of luck this year and is able to lay their dream buck down, and or at least is presented with an opportunity.
No, for sure. And with tips and tricks like this, Mitchell, I'm sure they'll get that much closer to harvesting their target buck. You know, one of the things that we'd been talking about through the Bowzone Live, we did a little filming for Bowzone Live here, was it last weekend, I think, and we were talking about the changes in food, changes in fields, changes in what's being planted, how people, you know, how the farmers are handling all their areas. And one thing that in my area and where I hunt, I've got a lot of places that have been alfalfa that have now changed into crop, right? And I had the perfect trifecta in a new spot, actually, that the guys had come in, they'd swathed earlier in the fall, and it was canola field, and they hadn't come in and combined yet. So I had does and bucks thick as thieves in there, and in, 3 days, they combined it, they turned it under, and they harrowed it. So now the only alfalfa is about a half a quarter section away now, and the deer, the moose, everything is on that field every single night, feeding like crazy. So when you're looking and when you're scouting, how important is the food source when you're coming into November for these mature bucks?
So, you know, if it was the early season, I'd say food is everything. That's all we worry about. That's all that's really on their mind is food. They're going to be going to that food source every morning and night to feed, and that's just, you know, their demeanor that time of year. But this time of year, things do change a bit. So Food is, for me, is still very important because that's still where those does are going to be focusing their time. But the bucks are going to be moving elsewhere. You might find them moving in the bush. You might find them not even leaving the bush, waiting for those does to come back and just, you know, holding them up in the bush. But still, I do think feed is very important. I just love hunting farmers' fields for that reason, because it's just, it really is, it's an essential for them, right? And, you know, you're going to see deer traffic there all the time, I think, and it's just, it's a great spot to go. But like you mentioned, you got to be adaptive too. There's so many variables. Like the Bowzone, I just love bowhunting whitetails, but the Bowzone, there's so many variables, and it's just so fun to tinker with. For instance, like the one hunt this year, actually in this spot, we had some just crazy stuff going on in the bedding area. There was actually some people that were camped in there that weren't supposed to be in there, and it's just amazing how encounter, like, we've had vehicles drive by us. You name it. Basically, if you could name it, we've had it happen to us in the Bowzone, because it is, you know, highly populated area. But it's just a matter of staying persistent, kind of going with the flow, because there's going to be things that happen that you feel like, oh my gosh, I could be the unluckiest hunter on the planet right now. But, you know, the nice thing I love about hunting is that can all change at a snap of a finger. So especially during the rut, because, you know, these deer are, these mature bucks are where normally they might slip up once in September, whereas November, you know, they could slip up multiple times.
Well, I've heard it equated to 2 a.m. at the bar.
That is true, yeah.
So, Mitchell, we've talked about a little early season, but we talked about the beginning of November, the different things that you do. I did actually have a question. Scrapes. Should you be hunting scrapes, or do you hunt scrapes this time of year, or are you more so concentrating on the fields where the does are coming out?
Yeah, so I kind of have a love-hate relationship with scrapes. I mean, I'm not opposed to sitting over one. If I go up in my stand and there's one there, that's amazing. And I'll even create them for them to hit. But I do find most of scrape traffic is just in the dark. It's just the way it is. I don't know, with my trail cameras, they do make up appearances in the daylight, but I'm not gonna, unless it's like you're seeing a lot of consistency on your trail camera, I'm not gonna really target that. For me, like you said, it's more so just hunting those, we sit in a lot of field edges and getting them coming out, you know, those does. If a buck's, you know what, even during the rut, it's funny. We hunt a big bush area field, and then there's a little draw. You wouldn't think nothing of it. It's just a tree line. And every year, peak rut, the bucks just push their does out there and they hang them up in there. And if you can find a little sweet spot, whether it's a funnel, a draw, and it doesn't have to look like much, if you have an area where you can kind of see consistency, where these bucks, when they have that hot doe, they don't want to be around the crowd, and they just get them out there. It's almost a slam dunk if you sit on this tree line every year, and you're going to kill the biggest buck in the area. It's just amazing how it works. So biggest thing is just being out there, and you're going to see things that you wouldn't see in the early season, and you can adapt and move in and try to make a game plan on them. And the window is pretty small, so you know what? If it's happening, go in there and capitalize. Don't be shy to get on them.
Awesome. Well, Mitchell, thank you so much for joining us on Wild Talk today. I'm sure you'll be thinking of the rest of us sitting out in the trees at -20, freezing our tails off while you're sitting back drinking a nice hot cup of coffee and staying warm by a fire.
Well, thanks so much for having me, Scott.
Good luck to all of the bow hunters that are going to be heading out and braving the cold just like the rest of us. All right, everyone, welcome back to Wild Talk, and we're back with Ryan Kohler. He's joined us, and Mike Slinkard from Hecs. Mike, how are you?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Good. Ryan, how's it going?
Yeah, really good. I just came home from hunting mule deer in the coulees in southern Alberta. We shot 2 mule deer yesterday morning. So I'm a little bit tired, but you know, we've been pretty busy. We were in elk camp and moose camp and mule deer camp, and then whitetails I'm going to Saskatchewan in a couple days, and then Bowzone Live starts in a few days after that. So I've just been in the field quite a bit. But, you know, pretty fortunate to be able to be out in the field and get out there and do those things. And, you know, I think we've been sponsored now for a few years. Mike's product, and people ask me so often about Hecs and what it is and what the technology is and how to use it. And I think, Mike, if you could give us or give me like the quick Cole's notes on how to explain it to someone, that would be awesome.
Sure. Well, I mean, it's something that a lot of people do have trouble explaining because it's really new to a lot of people. But what Hecs actually does is, in a nutshell, it blocks your electrical output. So every living being actually has a extreme low frequency electromagnetic field that goes out of their body. It's created through heart rate, muscle movement, and other bodily functions. So if you're alive, you're actually putting out this field. What we didn't know until fairly recently is that animals actually use this in a lot of ways to actually identify what's living and what isn't, and really key in on those things. So kind of how we came up with this was looking at what fuels the internal compass in animals. So we know that animals are picking up the electromagnetic field of the Earth, which has also an extreme low frequency electromagnetic field. The big discovery for us was actually linking those two together and realizing that people and every living being puts those out as well. And if you can take those away, and that's what Hecs does, actually blocks that electrical energy, you're actually much more like an inanimate object. So you can get away with more movement. When animals see you, a lot of times they don't react the same way. A lot of times it's curiosity more than fear, that kind of thing. So that's the down and dirty of it. But yeah, it's basically just blocking what we now know is now known as the biosignature or bioelectric signature.
Okay, so like the EMR, your electromagnetic radiation, is that the same thing? Electromagnetic field? Or are those two different things?
Yeah, it's basically the same thing. EMR is electromagnetic radiation, but all it really is that our bodies are all electric, so it takes electrical current to run our muscles. And our heart produces a big electrical output. So the higher that output, the more visible and the more noticeable you're going to be to animals. So, and they're going to know that they're near or looking at a living being versus an inanimate object. So what Hecs does, it has a grid in the fabric that's electrically conductive carbon yarn. It's specifically woven in a conductive grid. So just like the door on your microwave oven, it creates a Faraday cage, and it actually holds that electrical emission in capacitance, and when you touch ground, it grounds out. So real basic electronics. No big secret there, but
Okay, so in a hunting scenario, does an animal have to? So my first question is: does an animal have to see you to pick up on your EMR, or I guess EMF, whatever you want to say? Do they have to see you physically, or are they going to pick up kind of the vibe of you?
That's a good question. And a few years ago, I would have said that if they're close to you, they're going to pick it up. But the more research that comes out, the more we're finding that it actually is a visual thing. There was a big research study in 2016 that came out and talked about canines and bears, and specifically having a same molecule in their eyes that birds do, that they know the birds can see electrical fields visually. It's called cryptochrome. And so I actually believe now they actually have to see you. At one time it was a little bit, we were saying, well, I don't know, but after now, since we've been out since 2010, it really is a visual thing. So if they're where they can see you, then it's going to make a difference for you.
And then what about like a body part? So if I have, if I don't have my hands or my head covered in Hecs, are they going to be able to pick up the EMR from my hands and head? Or does my body put out more?
Yeah, so your torso is going to put out the most simply because your heart's a very big producer of electrical energy. So the shirt's the most important. And then the rule of thumb is the larger the muscle, the more important it is to have it covered. So your legs are going to be next most important. Hands and face don't actually put out a lot of electrical field, although they do some. Now, if you're hunting birds like waterfowl, turkeys, that kind of stuff, you definitely want to have everything covered, face, hands, everything. With big game, they're not quite as sensitive to that as birds are. Birds actually are the most sensitive creatures out there on electrical fields outside of sharks and rays. But, obviously having the most covered is going to be better. But like I said, the main thing is your shirt, your legs, and then your head's next after that.
And then what else gives off the EMR? Is it, could my tree stand give it off? Can my backpack? Is it just has to be living?
Yeah. So there's a lot of things that give off EMR. Your cell phone gives off EMR, for instance, or your cameras do. And I get this question a lot. It's, well, how come they're not picking up on my cameras and my cell phone and all that? Well, the thing is that animals have been, picking this stuff up for eons and using it for survival. And man-made electronics have only been around for a little while. So those are much higher frequency wavelengths. If they pick them up, which is very debatable, they're definitely not conditioned to react to them like they are other living beings, which, their instincts have been honed to pay attention to that for, eons and eons.
Now, what about if you made a ground blind and I was just covered in it?
Yeah, I get asked that a lot too. We may do a ground blind at some point, but here's my issue with a ground blind. Number one, the best place to block it is close to the skin. It's the most efficient place. It doesn't give it a chance to go very far and actually capture it very, very efficiently there. But the other thing with a ground blind is that the Achilles heel to a ground blind is you're going to have something open between you and them. So really the ground blind is going to work great until the animal gets in front of your windows, and then it's not going to do anything because your field's going to go out through the window. We've messed around with some mesh, sheet through meshes and things like that, but it's rather difficult to get the grid woven into something that would work well for a mesh. So who knows? Maybe we will at some point.
Well, I'll say this, Mike. I've used the product now for a few years, and I haven't had a chance to talk to you in a little while, but I shot the #1 whitetail that was ever videoed in Alberta, and it was the #1 ABA whitetail last year, off the ground, wearing your products, and then I shot the #3 moose, off the ground at 5 feet, wearing your products. We have these videos for you that I owe you, so we got to get them and then get them to you. And then this year, Corey Cook and I shot a bull elk. Corey was so close to the elk, he was 6 feet away, that he didn't know what to do anymore. It was like, I'm so close to this bull now. What do I do next, right? And then another bull moose this year, and then this year again, spot and stalking mule deer. I got close to so many deer, and this is going to be part of my last question. Really, is the issue we had with mule deer was scent was obviously a big thing, right? You always have to have the wind. So, do you have like a combo, like a killer combo that you use? You use the Hecs product and then a scent product that you combine them and make like yourself basically like almost invisible, right?
Well, sin is a very difficult thing to overcome, as we all know. I've had some good luck with the ozonic units in certain capacities, particularly inside ground blinds. I've had some luck with them, but I haven't found anything that is 100% on scent. To be just kind of a side note, one of our patents is actually a scent control patent, probably the most recently issued scent control patent. I don't know if it will ever do anything with it because while it will reduce your scent, you're still going to get scented if that wind's wrong for very long. So I wished I had a magic bullet, but I don't think anybody's come up with a real magic bullet yet that's going to work every time.
Right. Like, where do you go next, right? Because Hecs is such an amazing product. It's I think I'm a little clearer on how it works. I think you have to use it to see how it works, because you kind of wonder, like, how is this stuff happening? Why is it happening to me? I've been really fortunate lately and had harvested some amazing animals, and a lot of them were really close.
Yeah.
So
see, that's what people notice with Hecs is, and everybody's skeptical. I totally get it. I mean, I was the biggest skeptic in the world when we were testing this stuff too. I mean, we literally tested it for like 4 years, and I got hit in the face with it every time I turned around. And finally, I said, okay, we really do have something neat here, something special. And so, excuse me, I'm fighting a little bit of a cold. But like I said, the experiences out there. We've been around again since 2010. We do a lot of trade shows down in the States, consumer shows and all of that. And one of the funnest things is hearing all the stories from people. And, you know, we never have somebody come to the trade show and say, hey, I tried it, it doesn't work. Never. So, you know, it's always if somebody gives it a good, honest chance, and they're not expecting to be invisible, because it doesn't make you invisible, but it definitely gives you a big edge that there's no other way to get. So, so yeah, I mean, that's really, you know, kind of our key to our successes. We've been out there, people have been seeing the differences, and we've got a lot of converts. So, yeah.
Well, I know our crew of, I think it's 15 or 16 guys are now suited up with Hecs. They were last year too. We had, I don't know if you've seen some of the video from Bowzone Live last year, but I mean, we're shooting some 200-inch deers, a couple of 190s, some 180s. I mean, it was just unbelievable. I don't think we could ever repeat something like that, but that was our first year with Hecs. And you again, you wonder, like, why? Why does that happen? So for me personally, as a bow hunter, and a hunter in Alberta, and, you know, I'm going to Saskatchewan here right away, I'm now wearing it every day, like your lucky hat. It's not, it just became something that, like, if I don't have my Hecs stuff on, I kind of freak out. I'm like, okay, where's my Hecs stuff? It's like, you know, your lucky handkerchief, or your lucky hat, or whatever you have that you use that makes you feel really comfortable. And I'm kind of that way now, where if I don't have it, I feel like I don't have an edge, because I believe it gives you an edge, which is pretty amazing, because there's a lot of gimmicky stuff out there in the industry. And this is one that you got to really you got to do a little bit of research. You got to go online. You got to look it up for yourself. You've got to read through the website. You got to watch some videos and see, you know, kind of how it works. And once you understand the technology, it makes sense. I mean, you definitely are giving off some kind of vibes out there, and the animals are picking up on stuff. And when you block that, well, that's an edge, man. And anytime I can get an edge when I'm bow hunting or any kind of hunting, then I mean, I want it, right? Who doesn't?
Yeah, of course. Well, I mean, that's all it is. And it's not, like I said, you're not invisible. You still got to hunt. You still need to be quiet. You still got to keep the wind right, all of that. But you'll see a lot more, you know, a lot of people say, well, just weird stuff happens when I'm wearing this stuff. And I hear it all the time. And it is, you know, the electromagnetic fields that are emitted by living beings is actually something that science is actually just now starting to understand. Hecs came along even before that a little bit. I know, like with our wetsuit products, you know, back when we launched our wetsuit line, every scientist would have told you that lobsters do not have electroreception, every one of them. And due in large part to our suits, the lobster divers were going down and actually picking lobsters up off the seafloor and them not even trying to escape. We've got video of them literally touching their antennas and things like that, and the lobster just sits there and lets them do it.
Well, I'm impressed. I think it's a great product. It's also very unique. You know, you've got one product in the industry that nobody else really has, which I think is awesome. I'm actually pretty proud to wear it too, because I believe there's something to it. And I'm hoping that you get that other second patent rocking, and the next Hecs suit has some type of scent-free magic in there, and we have the ultimate, you know, the ultimate uniform, right? Like, wouldn't that be cool? So
you know, like I said, we can block a lot of scent. We really can. But one of my things, and I've always been this way, and I'm probably, you know, as a business person, probably silly for being this way, but if I don't have something that I can say is going to work for you, I don't really want to sell it. I really don't. And, you know, I'm confident that Hecs is going to work for anybody that puts it on, you know, as far as what we do. The scent control stuff, you know, can I reduce your scent? Absolutely. Our fabric can reduce the scent, and the fabric that's actually developed for scent control. But like I said, I don't know that we'll ever launch it, because I can't. You know, I've used other scent control clothing and everything like that, and to be honest with you, I don't have much faith in it either. You know, I think maybe it helps a little bit, but if that wind's blowing towards the animal, he's going to smell you. That's just what's going to happen. So until we get something that I can say, yeah, you're not, you know, you can actually forget the wind. If I could ever make that statement in good faith, then maybe we'll do something like that. But until that time, I'm not going to sell it. And it's probably silly as a businessman to say that, but that's true.
I think it's good, Mike. It's honest.
All right. So, Mike, thanks so much for joining us. I did actually have one quick question for you.
Sure.
What's next? What's next for Hecs?
Well, right now we're in the process of developing outer layers, and so actually we just launched an outerwear pant that is super nice. We will have them available in the Canadian market very shortly. They're actually just launched here in the U.S., so we're real excited about that. That's something that people have been asking for forever, because right now you have to kind of wear it as a base layer, and so the outerwear pants haven't really been available. So that's something that that's brand new. And then our hooded shirt is the new product. Actually, I'm wearing one now. It's got an integrated face mask and hood. That's been very, very popular for us too. So trying to just kind of expand the line so we have something that matches anybody's hunting style, and of course, have the technology at the same time.
Awesome. Well, we can't wait to see that hit the market, Mike. And that shirt you're wearing is actually the same shirt that I wear. So, yep. Well done. I love it. Well, Ryan, thanks so much for joining us. And Mike, thank you for joining us as well on this episode of Wild Talk. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Wild Talk, and I just want to remind you guys that if you have any moments from the field that you want to share with us and perhaps get them on the show, send us a quick email to wildtalk@wildtv.ca, and who knows, you might see it on the show.
Wild Talk is brought to you by Trapper Gourds, the Wild TV Canada app, and these fine sponsors.